Welcome to the Speed League podcast from Southern California. I'm Kelly Hansen. The website is speedleaguefantasy.com for all your free fantasy motorsports needs. We're talking about fantasy Supercross. It's been a while, but I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, the first draft pick in our league and already last place in our league, Ryan Berkman. What's up?
That is me. That is me. And then we were there at Anaheim too, just in time for me to see my whole team crumble right before my eyes. I had first round pick, so I went Jett, and then towards the turn, I picked up Deegan. I was unstoppable. I was thinking, man, I have this in the bag, and my team crumbled, and it was
Yeah.
pretty shitty.
Yeah, not so good. An eventful Anaheim one, which it wasn't last year. So, I mean, before we get into all that crazy stuff, it's actually been a while since we did one of these. We were doing outdoor motocross podcasts and actually stopped for a while without really giving any, publicly any reason why. But I'm just going to sort of address this at first right now, and we'll sort of talk about the details at the end of the podcast for anyone who's interested. But actually, what happened is, I mean, I got married in May, and then the next month in June, my wife was in like a very serious motorcycle accident, or a road bike accident. That I mean, it happened like a week before our honeymoon. We were supposed to go to Italy, and then she was in the hospital for a few days, and it was a whole big thing. But that's sort of long story short. It's a very interesting, I think, story. But I'll get into that at the very end here. But yeah, we're back essentially. So she's okay now. Everything's all right. But she was at Anaheim 1 with us, had a super great time. We actually had a big group of people there. We tailgated before. Always love doing Anaheim 1. And yeah, last year was not really a super eventful race. I mean, Jett came out and won his, first ever 450 Supercross, but this year didn't go quite so well.
Let me paint a little picture for you. So I was playing John in our league, and he drafted Levi Kitchen, and Levi Kitchen obviously had that illness, switch coast. John drafted Christian Craig, who was out for Anaheim 1, and John's team was just looking so bad, and I was so overly confident too. And you know that the fantasy gods always like to fuck with you when you're a little overly confident. And very soon, so I got a heat race win. I mean, Deegan won his heat, so everything was going good. But the main events, how first Deegan just freaking biffs it, and he starts in last place. Yes, he fought his way back up, and he is clearly the fastest guy on the track. I mean, I don't think that there's really any arguing that. Seeing him just fly past everyone and making his way back up to fifth with that little run in with Cody Schock again. But yeah, just my night did not turn out how I wanted it to. Everyone crashed on my whole team. I have Jorge Prado crashed. I have Garrett Marchbanks crashed. Deegan crashed. Jett crashed.
But Moseman also, I mean, your entire 250
Yeah.
team, I think Moseman was wrapped up with Deegan in that, second corner little pileup, right?
Yeah. So not how I wanted to start my season, but I mean, I'm confident that I'll get wins. It's a long season. I have a good team. Yeah, I'm confident that I'm going to get some wins. I have Plessinger as well. He didn't have a great night either, but someone whose guys had a really good night, that would be Kelly Hansen. His guys absolutely dominated in both classes.
Yeah, it definitely worked out for me. I'm first place in the league right now with Tomac. So, I mean, it could have even gone better. I was so stoked with him, pulling out, not getting the whole shot. Prado actually got the whole shot, which is awesome for Prado. He's a great starter. But Tomac with the lead went right by us where our seats were, throws a big whip over the triple. I'm screaming my head off. And then, a straightaway later, he's down on the ground, just completely lost the front end all by himself. And I mean, I listened to the podium interview with him after, and he was just so disappointed in himself for blowing that because he was so fast all day. Number one qualifier, looked absolutely on fire. I was so stoked with my pick, and I still am stoked with my pick because he essentially did the same thing that Deegan did, is, crash on the very first lap, end up in last place, and then fight all his way back to fifth place. But it's even more impressive in the 450 class. I mean, Deegan's passing some no-name guys, but nobody in the 450 class is a no-name guy. Tomac was passing killers the entire main event.
So we came out with our preseason rankings. Obviously those are kind of our like best guess. No one knows. Um, so so what's the big change that like you think we're gonna have? We had Sexton third, and I think that he merits getting moved up to second overall. I mean, even though he won, I don't think it's time to put him ahead of Jett yet. So I mean,
No.
Sexton definitely moving to 2. I mean, ahead of Cooper Webb. You agree with that, right?
No. I mean, honestly, no. I mean, it's too crazy to draw any insane conclusions from Anaheim 1. We know that, don't we?
Yes, but I mean, seeing that like performance with Sexton, I mean, granted, Jett crashed, but I think that Sexton is the second fastest guy seeing them on the track.
Maybe you're right, but I mean, I don't want to
We're
make
flipping
any
them upside
claims that
down.
we change it, because I mean, we try to rank them based on season long. Where are they going to finish the season? And I mean, Cooper Webb is a long haul type dude. I mean, I had no expectation really that he was just going to come out guns blazing and win Anaheim 1 necessarily. He's gonna, a few races in, all of a sudden show his speed and be fighting for at the end of long, grueling main events. Like, yeah. But I mean, honestly, it's good. I was stoked to see how fast Sexton was, because, with Jett being who Jett is, Webb taking second in the championship last year, Tomac looking really fast and coming back 100%. It was almost easy to, overlook Sexton, especially after last year didn't quite go to plan on the KTM, but he looked super good.
Yeah, and like speaking of our rankings, we had Roxon 7th, and like Roxon came out, and got a second. So that's like pretty surprising for me. I mean, I know that I was a little down this year on like some of the like top older big name guys like Roxon and like Tomac, and like both of them actually did really really well. I mean, especially Tomac, like we said, number 1 qualifier, but then Roxon just to out of nowhere kind of pull a second. I mean, that really does show that he's dialed in, and he's not too old yet
Yeah,
to
the heat race win too. He
yeah.
was totally on fire. I mean, yeah, some of the older veteran guys were really killing it. Jason Anderson also had like a great night. Is my second pick actually, that ended up really well. So yeah, strong showing from the older gentlemen, and major ego check for the young hotshots. I mean, the Lawrence brothers, all these people are paying thousands of dollars for their Lawrence brothers VIP experience, and then the Lawrences go 11-12 in the main event.
Yeah, and speaking of a Lawrence ego check, one thing that like really surprised me that I noticed at the stadium was when they announced Jett Lawrence's name in the intros, the whole
Yikes.
crowd booed. I mean, literally, it was a audible, loud, in like unison, everyone booing. And I mean, like, I like know that, he's a little young and a little cocky, but I feel like he's earned the right to be cocky to a point. And I didn't realize as a collective, everyone dislikes Jett Lawrence that much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's him and Haiden are they're just doing this, like, it's almost like MMA guys, you know what I mean? Where they're just over the top and talk so much shit and are flaunting their cars and their watches and stuff like that. And I mean, especially for someone like Jett, I mean, he's come out super hot, but, you know, talking about, beating Jeremy McGrath's all-time win record and stuff, people just think it's too cocky. But I mean, look, Deegan, I personally believe, is consciously trying to cultivate that. Like, almost like he wants to be the Jake Paul of Supercross. Everyone's going to hate me, but I'm going to get a billion YouTube views and just make all kinds of money doing this.
Yeah, and like Haiden, what he said after the main two when he finished in 5th is like they like came up to him or like, hey, how'd it go? How do you feel? He goes, hey, look, it like wasn't my night, and the limelight shouldn't be on me. should be on those guys that are on the podium. And almost, I felt like that was almost a like kind of like heartfelt moment where like he's, like being like and true to like who he is. Like, hey, look, when I win, I'll like kind of be a little, showboaty and say welcome to the danger zone. But if I get fifth, I'm not going to stand up here and make excuses or bitch and moan. I'm going to take my medicine and then come back next week and hopefully it turns out a little better. So I was actually, it was like cool to like see him be that way.
That's cool. I actually didn't see that. But that also kind of reminds me of the MMA thing. You see him talking all this crazy shit before the fight, just to get viewership numbers up, and then at the end, they're all buddy buddy and like acted like it never sort of happened. But I mean, look, before the race, I mean, he was had that little feud thing going on with Jett, where Jett said, in response to Haiden being his number one rival, he's not in my league. And then Haiden said he would beat Jett if he was on a 250. And then I also saw a thing that, when Levi Kitchen was saying that he was sick, Deegan was saying like, "Oh, don't make excuses" and stuff like that. It's like, the dude's ill. What do you want to say? So I don't know. Look, it just makes me feel like the old white guy at the end of the day. This is just the younger generation and what they do.
Yeah. Speaking of someone in the younger generation who like really overperformed, looked great all day, was like Julian Beaumer. I mean, he was someone last year that like had, maybe like one or two decent finishes. And then we're like, oh man, is this guy going to be the next thing? And he really didn't pan out the remainder of the season, thinking he was going to be a top guy, but he like qualified really well. And he finished second. And I know that you actually have him on your team. Where do you think you're going to predict him next week, coming off of a second ahead of Jordan Smith, Deegan?
Yeah, so for Anaheim 1, I mean, obviously he qualified first, and I try not to put too much emphasis on qualifying, so I had him predicted 5th, but he finished second. So he's flying, and he's definitely earned some better predictions. I mean, last year was his rookie season, and he's doing what you'd expect from someone who is going to be a top guy at some point of making a big step in his second season. So I have him tentatively predicted 3rd right now. I'll keep an eye on qualifying, but I mean, I expect Deegan to be coming back way stronger next week. Hopefully, winning his race. Not hopefully for me, but hopefully for him, winning his race. But Beaumer, I mean, he could be a podium guy all season. He really, really looks strong in that way, and I'm stoked for it. He was my pick of speaking of things to not put too much weight on. Watching like the preseason testing and those sort of flying at the test track things, I saw some video of him and I was like, damn, guy looks fast.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you like have that look of like looking fast. You could just kind of tell, and I guess that you did your homework and it paid off. I don't know exactly who you drafted him over. Like if you actually did make some, real decision on, okay, do I want this guy or like Beaumer, and choose him over another one? Because it's always a little more impressive when you take him where you shouldn't have and it ends up panning out rather than him just falling in your lap.
Yeah,
But
he was drafted. I mean, in the neighborhood of, I think Marchbanks had already been picked up when I picked him up, but it was like him and like Cody Schock were in the same neighborhood that I picked him up there. But I mean, speaking of which, Cody Schock, we're kind of jumping over the 450 class into the 250s right now, but there's so much to talk about. Cody Schock killed it. I mean, at least in terms of speed, I think I saw him crash 3 times throughout the day, twice in his heat race, and he still transferred. And then once in the main event. But I mean, yeah, he was running, I think, top 5 or something like that, and ended up 6th in the main event. Because Deegan got him right at that last corner. But super fast from Cody Schock also, and again, not even on a factory bike, Club MX.
And like as you guys probably remember, last year Haiden Deegan broke Cody Schock's collarbone during like a final corner pass. So like seeing it all kind of come, oh my gosh, Deegan's balls to the walls right now, and like Cody Schock's in front of him. I was a little worried that there was going to be some more fireworks. And like Deegan actually got him prior to the final turn on that last little rhythm section. So I was like, dude, is like Cody Schock just going to say fuck you and just go directly across the,
I
you
wanted to see it so bad. I wanted to see it so bad. I mean, it was so set up for it. Like the whole crowd was watching this battle for fifth place the whole last lap and reacting to it. And yeah, Shock just blew that last section crossing the start finish straight before the finish line. And it looked like he wanted to do it, but he was just a little bit too far back. And Deegan made like a real quick good line through the final corner and got out of harm's way.
yeah, yeah, could have been a lot worse than it ended up being. I was like scrolling through and like seeing all of my guys just so low. It is so disheartening knowing that I threw away the first race of the season, Kelly. Sorry to get a little distracted. I'm just scrolling down and just seeing my team. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but you've got great names on your team, and it's going to pan out. I know you picked up Justin Hill, who I had subbed in, who got an eighth place in the 450 class. I mean, he did practically nothing all year last year, and then qualified really, really well and backed it up hard in the main event. I mean, he was battling with Justin Cooper, Justin Barsha during that main event, finish ahead of Aaron Plessinger. That is a killer finish for Justin Hill.
Yeah, so I know that Hunter Lawrence crashed, Jett Lawrence crashed, Jorge Prado crashed, but I mean, some of the names that he beat straight up. I mean, Plessinger, Malcolm Stewart. I mean, like these are like guys that like didn't crash, and just were like slower than Justin Hill during Anaheim 1, and it's almost like crazy. And I mean, why he like came out so fast, I don't know if he changed something on the way that he's training or if he's taking it more seriously or if he figured something out on the bike, but like whatever it was really noticeable. And I bet no one had him getting a top 10. No one
Oh,
besides
for
his
sure.
mom.
Yeah. With this stacked lineup, no one, including him, is probably banking on that. But Malcolm with his 10th place. I mean, 10th place was a damn good finish for Malcolm Stewart after the crash that he had in the heat race. Because that crash he had in the heat race, I would have bet money we weren't going to see him again the whole night. And then to walk away with the top 10 is pretty sick.
Definitely. And I guess on the home broadcast, we obviously were like there, so we didn't see it, but my like dad was saying that like he like saw Malcolm when he was handing his bike to his mechanic. He like said, fix the bike, I'm like coming back for the LCQ. And even he was kind of hobbled and had the wind knocked out of him, but he was adamant, hey, I'm not throwing away this season 2 with these stupid crashes that he always seems to have. He was ready to come out in the LCQ and make the main, and to get 10th, that's like really, really cool.
That's badass. So yeah, I mean, the last guy I think I want to talk about in the 450 class is Jorge Prado, who you have on your team. I mean, in spite of his 14th place finish, he was running up front with the big boys for a very, very long time and looking really fast. And I mean, kind of living up to, I mean, maybe not even expectations, but the hopes of what you would want for like the MXGP world champion coming and like starting a Supercross career. I think he has like a really, really bright future.
Yeah, like a lot of these guys, are, I mean, there's a lot of fast guys this year, and starts are just so important. I mean, I feel like even if like Malcolm Stewart, like got the whole shot, or like someone like Aaron Plessinger finished 9th, but if he got the whole shot, probably would have got a top 5 or 6. Jorge Prado is an amazing starter. He had a great start in the heat. He had got the whole shot in the main, and if he could keep up these fast starts, I mean, he's going to be up there with like the big boys the whole time. And as long as he could, keep up with them while keeping it on 2 wheels, then like I think he's going to actually overperform where like a lot of people had him, because I really liked what I saw from him minus the crash.
Yeah, and I think we can reasonably expect that is going to continue with the starts because I mean he's got a well documented career of in MXGP being a good starter that's going to serve him awesome, especially in Supercross. So yeah, very cool. All right, anybody else in the 450 class? We've already talked about some 250s, but can we dive in there?
Yeah. Let's go to 250s.
Um, Joe Shimoda, the winner of the 250 class, we actually haven't brought up yet, but a sick ride from Joe Shimoda and an unexpected ride. I mean, obviously he didn't have to contend with Deegan in that main event because of Deegan's crash at the start. But I mean, I was looking at lap times. I mean, Joe Shimoda was, I mean, the fastest guy on the track besides, maybe Haiden Deegan coming through the pack. So, and more than that, just a flawless ride. I mean, I didn't see a single mistake. He was just out front. At the very beginning, Beaumaire was kind of keeping up with him. And Beaumaire had so much speed the whole day. I almost wonder if he was going to give him a run for his money, but Shimoda just steady pulled it away and like won a dominant main event.
And like he actually rode the perfect race and really the exact race that like you want to race as a racer where zero drama, you just get out there out front, like don't really battle with anyone and just run your lines first around the track the whole entire time. And it's really not the best from a fan perspective, obviously, but I mean, like, I'm stoked for Joe. He rode a great, consistent race like he's been for most of his like career. I mean, last year, I mean, he was the king of getting just fourths and thirds pretty much every single week. Uh, and I think that we like kind of called him one of the guys that like pick up the scraps, just like waiting for like one of like the top guys to crash. And then he's there just, and like kind of that is what happened this week. But I mean, still, I mean, he is definitely consistent. And like that's what you want from a racer perspective and also like a fantasy perspective is just that consistency every week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to expect that he's going to be not contending for it for sure podium every single week. He should be, as long as he gets the starts, continues to get the starts, because that has been an issue for Joe of like not getting great starts. But not getting a great start to the season has been an issue for Joe, and he just shook that monkey off his back real quick. So
Yeah.
that's really sick to see. We talked about Beaumaire. Jordan Smith at the third place, who, I mean, he was running third and then had just got caught up on a tough block and tipped over, dropped back to, I think, sixth, and then it passed his way back to third. So actually a really good ride from Jordan Smith for his first ride on the Triumph. A hell of a lot better than his Triumph teammate, Styles Robertson, missed all of last season, now coming back with a 20th place. Doesn't look great, but I've got Jordan on my team. He was actually my first pickup in the 250 class, and he looks totally solid.
One of your wives' friends that were there was like claiming that like Jordan Smith was like married to her cousin. Is that accurate? Have you like triple sourced that, or was like she just trying to sound cool?
This is my wife's friend Caitlin. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put any bank on anything she says for actual truth, but she was screaming Jordan Smith's name right behind me in my ear the entire main event. So I'm assuming that she must have some association with Jordan Smith. But yeah,
Get him on the pod. What are we waiting for, dude? Get him on the pod.
Will do. But yeah, that Triumph bike, this is the first year. Obviously, it's their second year in Supercross, but they didn't have any real contenders last year, and they're obviously trying to be contenders for this year. They got Faulkner coming up now on 250 East, but that bike doesn't appear to be holding anyone back.
Yeah, random question. Is like Triumph owned by like a bigger manufacturer, or is like Triumph
No.
Triumph? You know what I mean?
No, it's not one of those KTM, Gas, and Husky are all the same bikes. They're independent. It's a British company.
Yeah, I mean, like, what like trips me out is if like KTM is like going bankrupt, how does Triumph, and have the dough to freaking get like Jordan Smith and Faulkner and like all like coming up? I mean, like no one I know has a Triumph besides my like grandpa has like a 1962 Triumph Bonneville. I mean, like
Well,
where's like Triumph's dough coming from?
no, they're a pretty big deal in like more road bikes. I mean, it looked like the Moto 2 class actually from Moto GP. Those are all Triumph engines now, have been for the last few years. So yeah, they've got road race bikes. I've had a lot of friends that do track days that ride like the 675 is like a pretty common track bike. So Yeah, maybe not one of the biggest manufacturers, but look, they're trying to break in. And I mean, what's awesome is it seems like Supercross is really growing, and manufacturers are willing to dump money into Supercross to try and get their name out there more. When we were in the pits, we saw the displayed new Troy Lee Designs Ducati that's coming for 2026, which is awesome to see. And I mean, if you watch MotoGP, you knew that Ducati does not fuck around. I mean, they were pretty much like top 5 positions on those bikes for every MotoGP race this entire year. So it's really cool. Everyone coming into Supercross. And look, we were at A1 and it was, I mean, they said it was sold out and it looked pretty sold out. It was a packed Angel Stadium, more than I've seen in recent years. So Supercross is growing, which is rad.
Yeah, I know. And like we could only get about 1% of the stadium to like get on Speed League. That'd be pretty cool, Kelly.
Yeah, they should do it. Look, yeah, I know there's other fantasy options out there, and
None like ours.
we've played actually all of them, and it's awesome to be able to do all that kind of stuff, like and kind of get on the same level of some of the bigger sports out there like football and all that. But we have a unique game, where it's not just pick who you think is going to take first through fifth every single week. This is a fun thing where you can draft with your friends and have a season long league and do predict what places they're going to finish, and it's really engaging. So we like our game. That's why we're doing this. But anyways, enough about us. Back to the 250 class. My third guy is Ryder DiFrancesco. So that's a 234 I got. That's why I won this one, is because my 250 class murdered it. Ryder, I mean, last season was not a Supercross guy. Something has changed. He rode awesome.
Yeah, to see those two guys in their like sophomore year, Beaumer and like Ryder up there. I mean, that's really cool. Because you like love to see like the next fast guy, like the new household name for like Supercross, and like seeing him up there, Ryder D, has like the nickname and everything. I mean, I like hope that he keeps on doing well, even though he's on your team. But I mean, I like hope that he does keep on doing well, because I want to see the like next generation come up. And once some of these guys move to like 450s, we need a number 1 overall pick, and we'll see in a couple years if it's going to be him.
For sure. 7th place, Anthony Borden, kind of quietly, but he had a really good season last year. I mean, he's on the BarX Yamaha now. That's a strong finish. 8th place, Cole Davies, who I had subbed in at first, but I mean, I ended up dropping him in favor of Ryder D. But he was fast in qualifying, looked good in the heat race. He clearly is a strong starter. I mean, on the Star Racing Yamaha team, that kid seems to have a bright future also.
For sure. And that was someone that was definitely on like people's radar for the waiver, to like go on like the available roster and pick him up, drop your last drafted West guy and pick him up. I know that my dad in our league did that, and I jumped on Justin Hill. But yeah, I mean, as far as waiver pickups, I mean, really Justin Hill, maybe Cole Davies. Do you think that anyone else like people should be targeting, like if they have someone like Christian Craig or someone like Kitchen where they had to get a last minute pickup? Is there someone else that you would recommend them looking at?
I mean, in the 250 class, yeah, I mean, there's not as many big names. So, I mean, you're looking at someone like a Cole Davies would probably be a pretty strong pick if he's not picked up in your league. Anthony Borden, even Cole Thompson. I mean, Cole Thompson had a really consistent finishes last year. Definitely not the household name of Supercross, but if you're looking for somebody and he's available, that's probably a pretty strong pickup. 450 class is definitely going to be harder. Justin Hill was, we had ranked outside, where you're normally going to draft in our league. And yeah, people were clamoring to get him after Anaheim won, as they should be. So definitely snag Justin Hill. Joey Savacci and Benny Bloss, they got tangled up and finished 21st and 22nd place, but I would expect better finishes from both of them. I'm actually still hanging on to Joey Savacci and see if he's going to improve. Benny Bloss also. But I mean, all these guys are people that I'd probably be in this field predicting in the 13 to 16 range.
Yeah, and like a lot of times, like we talked about during the draft podcast, like a lot of these guys will get, like 13th or like 14th virtually every race. So if you like predict them in like 14th, I mean, that's 5 extra prediction points, which like then makes them finish point wise within the top 10. I mean, like how like the
Yeah.
points work. So like these guys, it's like, don't think, oh man, I'm stuck with Vince Freezy now because Craig's out and like this guy's out. It's like as long as you stick with predictions and like don't get down and out, but also don't like an over predict, because like that's always people's things. They think, okay, when Vince Freezy got 15th last week, so now he's probably at least going to get 13th or 12th, and then you just lose out predictions. Plus, you're losing out on points. Be realistic and almost towards the back, err on the side of caution. Predict those guys like 15th, because then you boom, get them dead on, and it really really does help out your score.
Yeah, and look, hashtag deep field before you put Kyle Chisholm predicted 10th. Think about who else is in the 450 class right now that he's got to beat in order to get that spot. So, yeah, this is part of what makes the game fun. I mean, that's what makes it a skill game, is predictions. Okay, should we do some picks for the next race?
Sure, lead us off, Kelly.
Okay, so we usually like to do a podium lock and then a little bit of a deeper pick. For my podium lock, I'm going to go Haiden Deegan. I mean, he's going to bounce back in the 250 class. Obviously he's still a little sketchy out there, and look, wasn't even qualifying first fastest. So I'm not ready to go with a predict him first, he's definitely going to win scenario. I mean, unless I see him, just setting a lap time in qualifying at half a second faster than anybody else, I'd probably go with a second place prediction for Haiden Deegan. It seems unlikely, barring another big crash on the first lap, that he's going to finish off the podium next week.
Like that pick. And like, really, I'm going to kind of stick with your not, having going crazy hot take. I mean, like my podium lock is like Chase Sexton. And I know that like that might seem stupid because obviously he got first, but I mean, this field is stacked and like there's so much that like could go wrong. And like Chase Sexton used to have that like stereotype of, oh man, he always loses it in the lead, always crashes out, like towards the end of the race. And he led that race and he was calm, cool, collected, didn't make any stupid mistakes. He's like been in the class for like a while now. And I mean, I was really impressed by like Chase Sexton, and I think that for sure he's going to come out and put even more pressure on Jett, try to take more points from Jett, and I think that he will for sure finish on the podium next week.
Yeah, and made progress with the bike, it looked like too, which was sort of the big question mark from last year. So that's awesome to see. A little bit deeper pick. I'm throwing Cody Schock out there. He looked so fast. I mean, was up with top guys through the whole night and like had a few tip overs. But if he can keep it on two wheels, I mean, he finished sixth. I'll probably predict him in that range. I would say sixth place prediction for next week, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, with a good start and maybe some help or, crashes or something from other guys to see him in the top 5.
And my deeper pick, and it's weird that he's like considered a deep pick, but I mean, first race of the season, he got 9th, which is Aaron Plessinger. Wasn't a great race for him. He like didn't look fast. Qualifying, didn't qualify well. Race didn't even have a crash. He was just kind of floating around. But like he's known for not being a like fast qualifier. I mean, always, even like last year when people were talking about him being like a championship contender, he would qualify 12th, but then get 4th or 3rd or 2nd in the race. So you can't put too much weight on qualifying, but I think that Plessinger will finish better than like 9th next week. I would probably put him around the 7 range. I mean, even though I'm like, what's crazy is that Plessinger finished 9th with Hunter Lawrence and Jett Lawrence behind him. So you think like, oh my gosh, it's like, would he have finished 11th if like those guys didn't crash? Yes. Yes. that like math checks out. But I think that he's going to come back round two a little better. I would say predict him probably seventh or eighth. That would be my feeling on it. What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, did you actually see what happened to him during the main event? There was so much going on. I think he was one of the guys I didn't even really catch or track what was going on with him. I don't. Did he have a bad start? Was there a tip over or anything like that?
So, I mean, from what I saw, because obviously I was, trying to keep track of everything. I like didn't see him crash. I just think that he had like a middle of the pack start, and just kind of maybe pass one person, but he just kind of coasted around middle of the pack for the whole race. There wasn't anything really exciting or like wrong with, yeah, just coasted it.
Yeah, but no, I would expect more out of him too. And yeah, stick it out again. A1 is A1, so I would expect to see Plessinger higher up than ninth on a regular basis. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's it for that stuff. For anyone else who's still hanging on and wants to hear this story, yeah, my wife, this was back in June, had a super gnarly motorcycle accident. So both of us, we ride street bikes, as you could probably tell from my helmet behind me. We have sport bikes. I have a Yamaha R6. She has a Ninja 400, and has been riding for a while. It was actually, I mean, we met partly because we were both riding motorcycles, and she's like done track days, all kinds of stuff. She's actually like a really solid rider. But yeah, a month after our wedding in May, we were supposed to be going on our honeymoon a week after this in June, and went up for a ride with a new group of people we had never ridden with before, out sort of behind Temecula and some windy roads back there. And um, riding with a pretty fast group. They were moving at a good pace. And I mean, for anyone who's familiar with sort of doing this thing, you always ride your own pace, try and keep up with anybody that's going faster than you're comfortable with. And she just went a little bit faster than she probably should have. So I was in front of her actually, and we were coming through one of those, it's like a blind right hand corner. That's one of those ones that it looks like it's going to be kind of easy and then tightens up a bit. That is kind of unexpected. So I actually came through the corner and I was like, that was a dangerous, sketchy corner. And I want to make sure she's okay. And I turned around and just watched her go straight over the oncoming lane, off the road, and into like this 12, 15-foot deep ravine. And what was even crazier was the bike right behind her was this guy on a Suzuki Gixxer with his wife on the back, followed her in, which is actually kind of a common thing in street bike riding, especially, is sort of the target fixation. So he goes right in and they go flying into the ravine also. So I obviously am freaking out and I flip my bike around and run down there as fast as I can. And they basically ended up at the bottom of this ravine. Both the bikes were on top of each other, and my wife was like 2 or 3 feet in front of them, sitting there. So, I mean, when I saw that other bike go in, I mean, obviously my first concern is like, oh, that bike's going to land on her, which, I mean, that can be, you know, the most dangerous. I mean, you got a 450 pound bike landing on somebody that can kill you. But fortunately, it didn't. She still was pretty messed up when I got down there. She was complaining of like, I mean, she was conscious and everything. She didn't hit her head through this entire thing, but she was like complaining of back and shoulder pain. We managed to actually, once we figured out that her legs were moving and everything was fine, we carefully got her moved over into like a shaded area because it was super hot. I mean, it's Temecula in the summer, and then got the ambulance called. They showed up, stretchered her out of the thing, and sort of long story short, we ended up at the ICU. We were there for 5 days. She had broken collarbone, just total clean break, going in opposite directions, her collarbone, and then fractured 3 vertebrae in her back. And then the really crazy, gnarly, unexpected thing was that the impact trauma actually caused an aneurysm in her aorta, um, which apparently, I mean, we were very surprised by, but is apparently something that can happen just from impact trauma. So, right when they got to, we were really close to the, I believe it's Inland Valley Trauma Center. We were fortunately very close to there, and that's the where the ambulance took her. And they called in a vascular surgeon and whole team like immediately to get this done. And went for, I mean, it is a heart surgery, but not open heart surgery. They were essentially able to go up through a vein in like her groin pelvis area and put a stent in her aorta. And actually, that was something that afterwards is really not a big deal. Like it's the aneurysm was super concerning. If that bursts, it's bad times. But once that stent's in there, she's in like really good shape and doesn't have any restrictions or anything like that. So she was in a lot of pain in the ICU for a few days. She was in a lot of pain when we got home for, I mean, weeks and maybe month and a half. But she's in really, really good shape now and basically fully recovered. I mean, she's still trying to be careful and, not do anything that's really going to damage her back. But Deb's doing good. So we canceled the honeymoon. We'll postpone the honeymoon. We'll be there in April this year. But yeah, quite a crazy thing. And this is the sport that we know and love is motorcycle riding. We all know it's a reality, but it's crazy to sometimes come face to face with it.
So you've been riding motorcycles for pretty much your like, whole life. Started on a dirt bike, obviously. Got a sport bike when you were like 21, right? And then
We
like
have together. Yeah.
well, yeah, and like you said that the like first time that you rode your like sport bike after the crash, you like kind of had a different feeling or like a different vibe and almost was a little like uneasy knowing like witnessing firsthand what can happen. Like, have you ridden since, and like, is that vibe still real, or like, have you kind of gotten past that after the second or third ride?
It's still there for sure. And I mean, look, to be honest, the older I had gotten, the more I was starting to kind of have that awareness of that, man, I did some crazy gnarly shit, a lot of canyon rides and track days and stuff in my 20s, and I'm pretty fortunate that I've never had a serious accident. Because I mean, I've ridden a dirt bike my whole life, and I've crashed a dirt bike 250 times in my life. The vast majority of those, you just pick the bike back up and keep going.
Especially how
But
like
you don't get
slow you go.
thanks. But you don't get that on a street bike. You don't get to, I mean, on the street, you don't get 250 crashes. It's, um, the stakes are just higher. So, yeah, I was already having that sort of awareness, and then to actually have that accident and to watch it happen, which was a crazy feeling. No, that's still sticking with me. I'm still riding. We're both dialing back the risk level of the riding that we want to do. Like she's already said, she hasn't been back on a bike yet. First of all, because her bike's still thrashed, but she says she wants to. But probably no canyon rides. Probably still do some track days because I mean those are actually there's a lot of safety there. You've got the gear, you've got runoff areas, you've got ambulances on site. All of that is like pretty straightforward. Um, but no, I mean there's definitely an awareness more so than ever that this is a crazy thing that we do.
For sure. Not to end the like podcast on a downer or anything, but it actually, I mean, is like a like, happy ending in the end. I mean, she's okay. She went to Supercross. She's in great spirit. She doesn't have any permanent, lasting damage. So, I mean, I feel like she really did, like got like lucky. I mean, when crashes happen, and for her to be able to heal so quickly and well, it's a really good thing. So.
Yeah, and a great story out of it too. I mean, there's so many weird things about this. I mean, I think you had probably heard this, but I mean, I'll tell it for the sake of the podcast. Is she, got the ambulance right out of there, and then at a certain point when we were in the hospital in the ICU, she got a call from insurance. Just checking on like, hey, we got this report that you're in the hospital. But the insurance person asked her, like, do you need help with substance abuse? And she was like, what? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, they did a tox screen when you got to the hospital, and they found like ketamine and opioids and like all this stuff in your system. And she was like, yeah, I was in the ambulance and they gave me all these painkillers in the ambulance. And they're like, oh, so you don't have like a drug addiction problem? She's like, no, and strike that off my record because I'm a teacher. So it seemed like the craziest thing ever to me. Like, she's the first person to ever show up to a trauma hospital after getting painkillers in an ambulance. This has to be standard fare. But
That's what they all say, Kel. That's what they all say.
yeah. She was just in a K-hole when she was riding her motorcycle. But anyways, yeah, great stories.
She was
cool
talking
scar.
about she was talking about your like K-hole the other day, but I think that was a different thing.
Oh, now we got to end the podcast on that. Thanks. Okay. Next week is San Diego, and then we're back to Anaheim after that. I'm stoked for San Diego. You and I are playing each other. It's going to go down. So hopefully
Hope you lose.
Hopefully your team just is consistent is what I'm hoping for. But yeah, in any case, good luck out there. Yeah, hit us up on, follow us on Instagram. If you aren't already signed up, you can still create a league right now and just start it from San Diego, speedleaguefantasy.com. It's absolutely free. Please come support us. We're not industry insiders or people who are making a ton of money on this. We're just people that really love the sport and like the game that we built. So come say hi. But anyways, we'll see you for the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Good luck.